Alexander in Telford, I can only call it one way. How do you see it? Good morning.
Yeah, I think now, for all we say negative about the social media, I think the social media, it's sort of like an independent journalism on its own.
Yeah, I don't know if it's quite journalism, but yes, it certainly helps get to some of the facts, certainly.
Yes. Yeah. Once you get on Twitter, one is able to get different views. And whatever view you look at it from, this guy was obviously directing traffic with his phone. No one even knew he was.
He was obviously, did you say directing traffic?
Directing traffic, yeah.
Right.
And now this lady was actually, it was a lady, he was there with a lady.
Yes, he was there with a woman,
was
yes.
accosted by the ICE agent.
Yes.
So the ICE agent pushes this lady, and then the man sort of like goes in, like, sort of, what are you doing? And then the ICE agent produces a pepper sprays him, and the man was suddenly now grasping around, and then that was when they jumped on him.
Mm-hmm.
He was jumped on by at least 5 ICE agents, and he was put to the ground. And next thing, he's shot.
Yes.
I think he was dispossessed. In what world do trained officers jump on a man?
They're out of control, I fear, Alexander.
Yeah. They're supposed to be trained, aren't they?
They are meant to be trained, but whatever training they're getting clearly isn't good enough.
And then they shoot him.
Yes.
I mean, I don't understand how a man jumped on by 5 agents gets being shot. And they're saying that he was armed. I mean, this is all secondary. The fact is that they jumped on a seemingly defenseless man for no real reason. And power, sort of like...
Well, just give me your view on this, lastly, Alexander. For the Trump administration, he was a, quote, domestic terrorist and an assassin. And for the local ICE commander, his agents, the ICE agents, are the actual victims. The response to those two lines, if you would.
Yeah, this is simply a lie. I mean, this man, the truth is that an innocent man, a nurse, was publicly executed on the streets of Minneapolis. Full stop.
All right. Alexander, thanks for getting us started.
Antwi's in Prague in the Czech Republic. Antwi, what would you like to say?
Hi, James. Thanks for having me. First, I'll be really short. Revolution. There's no other way in the U.S. how to get through this, or convince somehow for the Democrats and at least part of the Republicans to pull their heads out of their behinds and start doing something about it. Invoke the 25th. Do something about it.
What would that mean? Remember, I have an A-level in American politics, but not all my listeners do. So just remind us what invoking the 25th means.
So, 25th Amendment, if a president is not able or capable of performing his duties because of behavioral issues, so he's mixing up Greenland and Iceland. He's saying that peace.
But that would involve Congress. That would involve Congress, right, where he still has a majority.
Yes, sir. I mean, do the Republicans think that everything will go in their hand, that everything will be perfect and fine for their party if they go their way? I already said there are two things. So I'm from Philly. I'm from a city where we don't mess around. Already the Black Panther Party is reestablishing there. Is number one, which is crazy to me because...
But do you not think that people like Stephen Miller and I mean, he's clearly got a brain that functions. I don't know if you can say that about many other members of the... J.D. Vance, Stephen Miller and J.D. Vance would love more violence on the streets. I mean, Trump, if Simon Marx's theory is correct, and it's going to be increasingly hard to argue with, that he doesn't want midterms and he wants to be able to concoct and claim. But then your course of action would give him what he's hoping for.
Listen, but what is happening in Minnesota is actually a preparation for taking away the midterms. There's not going to be any elections because what they're doing in Minnesota is a preparation for what they want to do in all the cities across the U.S.
But that's how fascism works. That's how fascism is. And we always think historically that fascism must have been violently and furiously resisted at every turn. But it's ushered in, mate. It's cheered in. That's the problem. So you and I don't know how, we sit here being disgusted, being publicly disgusted and publicly outraged, and it's a sincere, authentic reaction, and yours will be much more powerful, or even more powerful than mine because you're American. But there are people there who will be falling for the lies, and this is the bit that frightens me most, and that I haven't got the vocabulary yet to properly analyse. I can process people who are falling for the lies. I can't process the people who actually really love this stuff. And there must be millions of them, man. There must be millions of them.
Why does Trump still have 30% approval rating, or 30 to 40%? I don't know, depending on the polls. Because there's still a part that loves this, that they really want to change the status quo.
We don't know that. This is helpful, man, because it isn't necessarily a question that gets immediately answered this morning. Because how many Alex Prettis does it take for that? Because it could happen once, and in the case of Renée Nicole Good, you could just about, if you wanted to, persuade yourself that it wasn't as bad as everybody was saying it was. You can't really do that here. The handgun, which I mean you could describe as concealed, but you need to understand American gun laws to realise why that's really not a big deal. Might give some people in this country the chance to pretend that it's not as awful as you and I are describing it as, but Americans aren't. With your history of gun culture, with the role that the National Rifle Association plays in the right to bear arms, there's no earthly way that this is going to stand, because everyone can watch, everyone can see what happens. So what we don't know, if there's 5 of these, 10 of these, 100 of these, do things change? Because if they don't change after 1, how confident can you be that they'll change after 100? That's the thing. That's the thing we don't know. It's not a phone-in question. I mean, you can have a crack at it.
I know. Yep.
But you can't answer
really. It. I'll leave it to the rest of the audience that will be calling in. One more thing, please.
Of course.
I wanted to call in Friday for what Trump said about NATO.
Yes.
I am half Czech, half American, have both citizenships. I have friends that served in the Czech army, actually 11,500 deployed into Afghanistan.
Wow.
26 wounded, 14 dead. Even the Czech prime minister, who is right now in the middle, the Czech Republic is trying to figure out, do we go with the U.S. or do we stay with the European Union, because we have Euroscepticism, new Prime Minister Babiš. Even he called out that this is hideous and that he shouldn't have said this. And
I don't know if it matters. This is the thing that today's show is about so far. I hadn't realised in that interminable introduction. But it is about actually trying to work out what the new rules are, because all the old rules just got broken. And if you think they were broken before, I'm here. I believe you, and you might be right, but I would say fractured, fatally fractured previously, and then on Saturday, absolutely destroyed. And no one knows how to report that. When all the rules are broken, when everything has been... How do you report it, let alone respond, which is the question Antwi chose to answer, and which you can answer too. And what do you say about the 30-odd% of people who still approve of Donald Trump? Are they fascists? 0345 6060 973. Because I'll say it again, fascist regimes do not fight their way to power every time. They are cheered and applauded all the way up the central streets of the capital cities. Sometimes.
Peter in Stirling, good to hear from you again, Peter. Your reaction on it, your verdict, if you will. Good morning.
Good morning, Nick. I don't think we should be calling it a shooting. It is an execution. It's a summary execution by people out of control. I mean, if that was in a war zone, there would be an investigation, wouldn't there?
There would actually.
If this was any other country in the world, we wouldn't do it. We'd be sanctioning people connected to ICE, and we'd be having very strong words with their leader or their diplomatic staff about this. If this was Iran, or if this was China, if this was a country that was like, I don't think Syria or something like that, we would be taking action, even if it's just to... but we won't.
What does it tell you, lastly, Peter, what does it tell you about ICE and how it's operating, and what does it tell you about the Trump administration? Peter?
Well, I can't remember where the journalist was from. She did this attempt where she basically tried to sign up for ICE to see what their checks were like. There's none. They're not checking who they're getting in. And then I think the training is minimal at best. And I don't think de-escalation has ever kind of entered into the lexicon of many federal agents and law enforcement. And it's bad enough. And then you've got people now, you're not even screening. You're giving a gun, you're masking them up, and you're saying, do what you need to do.
I know, and there doesn't seem to be, and quite how you would allow language such as domestic terrorist and assassin. All that's going to do is, of course, increase the tension and keep it at such a perilous point. Peter, thank you for that.
Sarah's on the line from Minneapolis. I apologise for keeping you on hold, Sarah. What would you like to say?
Hi, James.
Hey.
I have to collect my thoughts.
Of course, take your time.
I am a teacher of elementary students in Minneapolis. My students are English language learners, and so all of my students are immigrants. My school is 3 blocks away from where Alex Pretti was murdered.
Wow.
I think what I want to say is that I'm here to let people know, because I know you have listeners all around the world, that I'm trying to cut through the lies. Mm. And as soon as this happened on Saturday morning, the reaction was another person's been murdered. And my second reaction is, how are they going to spin this one? Especially after seeing the video with my own eyes of what happened and knowing that they're going to make something up of how it was justified, when in plain sight there was no justification for murdering that man.
Because they have to, right? They have to lie. And what's the alternative? If they lie about Renée Nicole Good, they have to lie about Alex Pretti, and the next one, and the one after that, and the one after that. They have to lie, and that's the bit that's new, I think, for me at least. Maybe not for you.
Well, and you have to remember that I've also been through George Floyd and the uprising, and that was all lies as well about the situation, and it continues to be lies about that. That there's so many people who say that he was not murdered by Derek Chauvin; it was a drug overdose. Sure. So the people in Minneapolis are used to being told lies about what we know because we're here and we live it. And so I just want people to understand that you can't, if you see Kristi Noem or Greg Bovino going up and speaking to people, none of it is true. And that the things that are happening here are going to move on to other places. And I'm telling you, I never in my life imagined that things would be the way they are in a place where I live. That the families that I work with of my students cannot leave their homes. They literally cannot leave their homes. We have teachers and neighbors who have to go pick kids up because the ICE vehicles are roaming around the neighborhood. They're sitting outside apartment buildings where it's known that immigrants live. We have to deliver groceries to them. We had to deliver Christmas presents because the parents can't leave. And so I just want people to be aware that this is the state of Minneapolis right now. And just when you think it's not going to get worse, it probably will. I'm fully expecting that Trump is going to bring in military troops and we will be a police state.
Well, he's talked about the 1807 Insurrection Act, hasn't he, which would entitle him to flood Minneapolis with more force. So those of us who have flirted with the word fascism in recent months and years, I should probably stop flirting now, because this is the claim that because your agents are murdering innocent civilians, you need to respond as if it's an insurrection. I mean, the dispiriting thing is, and you're an English teacher, I mean, not literature, language, but the dispiriting thing is that all the dystopian novels describe this. I mean, the playbook, it's not just the history books. I'm going to read you something from The Handmaid's Tale, if I may. There were marches, of course, a lot of women and some men, but they were smaller than you might have thought. I guess people were scared. And when it was known that the police or the army or whoever they were would open fire almost as soon as any of the marches even started, the marches stopped. A few things were blown up, post offices, subway stations, but you couldn't even be sure who was doing it. It could have been the army to justify the computer searches, and the other ones, the door-to-doors, the door-to-door searches. That's Margaret Atwood in The Handmaid's Tale, which she herself has described as a warning, not as a novel, but a warning, and you're smack in the middle of it. What should... This question feels a bit inadequate now that I'm talking to you, but what should media do in a moment like this? What should proper journalists be doing?
I don't even know, because I mean, to be honest, like on Saturday when this was happening, I turned on our local news and it wasn't cutting it for me. I feel like even the people who are here locally, like the news readers, they don't live in the city. They live out in the suburbs. They don't know the city. And so nothing quite seems adequate, that I feel like anybody can say anything they want and present anything the way they want to present it. And it's not really true unless you're living it. And I just, wanted to share my perspective as somebody who's living it and get that out.
Thank you. No, I mean, you sound traumatized, but, and that's just somebody who is involved. You're not hiding in your home. You're not.
I mean, and I have a lot of privilege. I'm a white woman and I'm a teacher, and to be honest, I don't go many places right now outside of home and work. And the truth is that I have not actually seen any ICE agents myself, but I know that they're out there, and I mean I've seen them online on video and on whatever, but not personally. So I consider myself to be at this point very lucky and very privileged, but that's not the case for most people.
No, of course it isn't. And the point here as well, of course, is that neither Renée Nicole Good nor Alex Pretti were the targets of ICE. They were not migrants, undocumented or otherwise, and there are plenty of people being deported who've got every right to be in the United States of America. That they were simply, in Renée Nicole Good's case, arguably just in the wrong place at the wrong time. In Alex Pretti's case, standing up for what he believed in, what he the same principles and values that prompted him to take a job in a Veteran Affairs hospital working in the intensive care unit. 10:47 is the time. That is quite disturbing, Sarah. Thank you, and also important, because I think what is emerging so far this hour is that there isn't a button to press or a book to open that tells you what to do. There are warnings from the past. There are warnings from the canon, from dystopian literature, but there's no manual. What do you do when your president, your democratically elected president, is a fascist and starts killing civilians for the crime of what? Refusing to ignore the evidence of their own eyes and ears. I don't know what the answers to these questions are, but there aren't many more important questions around at the moment.
Let's speak with Jack, who's a new caller in Merton. Hello, Jack.
Hi, how you doing, mate? You all right?
Yeah, good, thanks. What did you want to say?
So I just wanted to comment on the remarks that some of the previous callers were making. I think it's honestly quite disappointing, and it really does reflect the issues that we've got going on in our own society back in Britain and why nothing really changes. And I think fundamentally it goes down to the fact that people don't seem to understand context or do any sort of research. I've seen the direct footage of the Renee Good situation, and her partner went there looking to obstruct justice, looking to cause issues. You had her partner outside of the car, not inside the car, outside of the car, screaming at Renee Good, saying, "Drive, baby, drive! You've got this!" Pushing her to essentially, you hear her revving her engine, you hear her driving, she's ready to go, and she's driving directly into law enforcement. I mean,
no, she's not. They were turning the wheel. You saw that. Jack. Was she driving off when they were clearly talking to her? Yes, but she was turning her wheel. She was clearly not about to hit this individual.
I've seen the ICE agent's footage. She's driving directly into him. He's holding a fire at her because she's obstructing justice. If you obstruct justice in the United States, all
you don't deserve to be shot.
Okay, look, you let everyone else speak who agrees with your opinion, but when it comes, I'm providing an alternative perspective, okay? These people, like that American lady who called in, she doesn't even recognise ICE as law enforcement. These are the opinions that they think they're above the law. They choose who they want to consider law enforcement or not. In the UK, if I think, you know what, I don't agree with the police, I don't agree with Labour, I don't agree with their policies, I'm just going to break all laws and live in anarchy. That's the views that some of these people on the far left have. Her partner, after, was saying, this is all my fault, I'm the one who brought her out here, I was the one who telling her to drive, this is my fault. I've seen her own remarks on the whole situation. Of course the ICE agent's going to fire. He's got a firearm at her because he's telling her to get out of the car, you're obstructing justice, you are committing a crime, okay? She's not doing that. She drives directly into him. Of course, any human being in that situation is going to fire when their life's on the line. And
I think, look, Jack, the problem is, I think it's gaslighting, the idea that she was driving at the individual. She wasn't. And if we focus on the case from yesterday, by the way, we police by consent, certainly in the UK. People, of course, you want them to respect law enforcement, but you have to earn that respect and police by consent in order for people to buy into it. No, but hold on. But Jack, there's a reason why people are sceptical of ICE and not recognising their actions. It's because of instances like we saw play out on the streets of Minneapolis yesterday.
I mean, okay, I can't particularly. I'm not someone who's going to look on. Like, I haven't looked into the direct evidence of that situation yet. It happened very recently. I heard this story on the radio now, and I wanted to comment on what I know. I'm not going to be like someone who's going to blind-heartedly hear something and be like, oh, and comment on it without knowing all of the details. We don't know enough yet, and this is the same thing that happened with Renee Good. People didn't know enough yet. They started speaking about it. They were outraged, and then all the further details came out. And there are a lot more details that all of these callers and yourself, you're missing the key details. Describing ICE as fuck, these people
Jack, I'm sorry. The key detail is the fact that she was shot. You may think that she acted in a way that she could have, I don't know, handled the situation better. At the end of the day, she's been shot dead.
How are you expecting to react?
To not shoot her. You don't have to...
You don't believe it's self-defence?
There's a difference between self-defence and shooting someone who is posing not a threat. And in both of these cases, I struggle to find... If we saw video footage of them squaring up to an ICE officer and pointing a gun in sort of between their temple, or, at their temple, then I'd understand. That's not what we've seen in video footage.
How are you defining the lines of self-defence as someone directly holding a firearm at you? Because
I think if you are going to shoot someone, Jack, you've got to have a bloody good reason for doing so. And in both the videos I've seen, there is not a good enough reason. And yes, fine, I'm not in law enforcement, I appreciate that, but I don't really want a situation where a country that we are very much allied to, a country that we all really should love, you've got a situation where people are scared to go shopping because they're worried about these ICE agents.
Come on, this is honestly ridiculous. Like that lady said, she's scared to go back to America. Nothing's going to happen to her. She's in the country legally.
Respectfully, Jack, she says she's, as an ethnic minority, she's scared, so I wouldn't have you or I tell me how she feels.
I'm an ethnic minority. My dad's a Syrian national. I went to
she feels differently.
I went to Florida 5 months ago, and all this propaganda you hear about how Florida's like you've got to be, it's utter ridiculous.
Well, in your experience, did you go to Minnesota?
It is fear mongering, and I know it is, and many people,
say that to the family of Alex Pretti or Renee Good.
Say that again, sorry?
You say it's fear-mongering. I'd like to see you say that to the family of those who've had their loved ones shot and killed.
In the case of Renee Good, she came there to cause trouble. She came to obstruct justice, and she didn't want to deal with
You're allowed to protest. You're allowed to protest, Jack.
They're obstructing. There's a difference between protest
and if you disagree, you may agree with what ICE are doing, and that's fine. If you disagree, then you're more than able and legally allowed to make your voice known, and that is what they were doing.
Don't you think it really reflects the kind of character that these people were, where they've got kids, right? The Renee Good had kids. She was a mother, and instead of taking her child to school, she would rather obstruct ICE justice. They're coming here to detain sex offenders and criminals and drug traffickers. They're not here to arrest every day. They're here to arrest criminals.
People are entitled to disagree with it. People are entitled to disagree with it. I wouldn't have you lecturing someone on if she's a good mother or not. We know nothing about her.
But I'm saying it reflects. I'm saying that if you look at the context,
Jack,
it reflects.
People are allowed to protest. You may disagree with it, but if people want to spend their...
I agree, but it's not protesting when it's obstruction of justice, when it's the obstruction of arrest.
And if people go beyond the line of protest, and there's a way of dealing with them that is not just shooting them. Surely you can see that. This should be an absolute last resort.
I understand that, but when someone is revving their engine and driving directly into you, unfortunately, sometimes humans react in ways that people would conceive not necessarily the correct thing to do. It's a moral question. I 100% agree. I feel bad that she's died. I feel bad for her family. I think it's terrible what's happened. But to put the blame on that ICE agent, I think is also incredibly wrong, because he was put in a situation. It was relatively life or death. You've got to think like this person. Adrenaline is running through his body. He's being driven into. Wow. He has a firearm on his hands because he is here to detain criminals, and she's obstructing justice. Okay, that is his job. That is the duty.
Still doesn't mean she should have been shot. And I think it comes from the top, really, doesn't it? And these are, in some cases, some ICE agents very highly qualified. They know what they're doing in terms of law enforcement. Well, this comes from the top. And when you've got the Kristi Noem from the Department of Homeland Security, Donald Trump, labelling people as domestic terrorists willy-nilly. If this individual, Alex Pretti, was a domestic terrorist, what does that make the President of the United States, who's sanctioning killing people on the streets? Thank you, Jack. A new caller in Merton.
Moona's in Kilburn. Moona, what would you like to say?
Hi, James. I hope you're doing well this morning. Happy Monday.
Thank you.
I'm just going to just give you a brief recap of just about me a little bit. I promise it's going to be less than a minute.
Hey, take your time. That's all right. I go on forever. I don't know why anyone else feels the need to be brief.
No worries. So I'm from London originally, but I moved to Minneapolis when I was 19. I'm now 35. I've actually attended high school there for a year, even was part of the cheerleader and track team. I went to university, graduated with my undergrad. I worked through college. I've been having 2 jobs, and then also started my career in technology, and finally ended up working for a big 500 Fortune company, one of the big companies in Minnesota. So I've lived there for a very long time.
It's home.
I've also come back to London at least once or twice a year. My entire family, my mom, my grandma, everybody lives here, my sisters. So I come home often. So I take that flight back from London to Minneapolis. I've taken it over 20 times. There was a time where there wasn't even a direct flight, only about 10 years ago. So I'm also an immigrant. I'm also Somali. This is not something I was planning to admit. Like Alex, I think had some with the law. I have a misdemeanor, so technically, which I, did my volunteer work. It's very different. I mean, I'm happy to go into it if you have questions later. But technically, if you was to look at me from Donald's eyes, I'm an immigrant, I'm Somalian, I'm a criminal. So all of those things are true. But however, everything else I said before is also true. This year, I've been back to Minneapolis a few times. I've been back and forth from London. I'm currently actually unemployed for the first time in 19 years. Okay. So my family just going back and forth from London and Minneapolis. And in September, I decided not to go back for a friend's wedding because if you remember, this same thing that's been happening in Minneapolis was happening in California for a very long time over the summer. And the same way the media was covering it in America, they're covering the same way that they covered what happened in California with the ICE raids and those immigrants that were working on the farms and the people and calling them riots in LA and all of that. So this story, which is kind of crazy, like I don't see a lot of people it's like we've lived through this. It was just in the summer. So I didn't attend my friend's wedding because I didn't want to I didn't want anything to happen to me and then having people to, choose between the wedding and me or something like that.
Getting you out of incarceration or wherever it is you would have ended up.
Because it was a real threat.
What are you seeing now? I mean, what are you seeing now?
I went back in October to volunteer for the mayor's race because, again, it's very much my community. I live in Minneapolis the last 19 years. I had 2 friends.
I know I told you to take all the time you wanted, but we are going to hit in the news
I
very
just wanted to say something.
Okay.
Yep, I just wanted to say something. I'm planning to go back, but this is the first time in 19 years I had to feel like I had to email my lawyer. All my text messages and my friends are saying, don't come back, don't come home, we're so glad that you're not here. When I'm telling them that when they're going to the protest, stay safe, they're like, oh, I'm being safe. There's nothing that being safe means. You could be walking down the street. Alex was helping 2 people. Yes. I've helped people get up when they're slipping from the snow. It's an instant. And your government, they're just not there to help you. They can barely even secure the crime scene. And how am I supposed to go somewhere and feel like I could disappear? People are disappearing. Yes. And I grew up in Minnesota. When people ask me where I'm from Minnesota or London, I say both. And in fact, I'm terrified to even go. I just don't understand. I've been terrified for a very long time, but I'm even more terrified now because I'm Somalian.
Of course.
And I'm going to Minneapolis.
And Trump is singling out you people of your ethnicity for the next stage, really, of racist othering. It's specifying. The way it was Haitians in the run-up to the election, it's Somalis who've come out next on Trump's list of people who he will use to demonise everybody of colour and everybody from an ethnic minority, but it puts you at the front end, it puts you at the sharp end. What do you think, and I am already late for the news, so very briefly, what happens next?
Like I said to all my people that have contacted me, I'm going to do what I need to do, which is I'm going to have to face whatever happens to me. And what happens next is the people that haven't spoken out, they have a decision to really make within themselves.
Yeah, you're right. That is it, which means we can't answer it because we don't know how many of them there will be.
Louis in Sutton. Hello, Louis.
Hello.
Hello. What did you want to say?
Well, I will say why these people are protesting about it, I don't know why they don't let the law enforcement do the job, If they protested, they had to protest peacefully. Why they always...
But they were peaceful. I mean, what do you mean? They were...
I've seen the video, and this
of which one? Of Renée Nicole Good or of Alex Pretti? The one yesterday or the one 3 weeks ago? Which video are you talking about?
No, the one yesterday.
Right. Where do you get this idea from then that he was being sort of violent?
Well, this guy is resisting the arrest or whatever, and he was fine with the.
Is he?
With the gun,
from the video
gun,
I've seen, there's about 6 ICE agents pinning him down.
Yeah, exactly. But okay, in first instance, what he was doing there, Listen,
what do you mean? He's allowed to protest. Okay.
Yes, but protested without far away, no? I mean, if he has family... What the hell, man? I have family here in UK.
He might be worried about the way that people...
Let me finish my sentence. Let me finish.
God.
On my case, I'm living here in UK, right?
Yes.
I work 16, 18 hours a day. I don't have time to go to protest. Yes, because I have family. I don't have time to go to nowhere, man. I mean, the last thing that I want to say is people have to be worried, first of all, to get better themselves, better themselves spiritually, better man, better husband, not watching whatever.
I don't know where this is going, Lou. You work very hard. Great. I mean, I'm not quite sure how that involves a 37-year-old vet being shot dead on the streets of the United States.
But in the first instance, why he was doing there, Why?
It doesn't matter. Frankly, it's none of your bloody business, Louis, what he was doing there. He's a free citizen. He's allowed to do what he wants. Because of the mad laws in America, he's allowed to bear arms. So he was bearing arms. And from the videos I've seen, he certainly wasn't brandishing his firearm.
But if I...
This is infuriating. It's constant victim blaming.
Because, first of all, it's not my business, I have to be
but you called up a radio
working.
Well,
that's the only thing.
Yeah,
I mean,
well, why don't we just ban protest then, Louis?
I don't agree that the police kill him. I want to make this clear, But we don't know the details first. We don't know the details.
Because if you see the videos, it's infuriating. We can't have this in front of our eyes where we see what's happened and then we act like that something else has happened. There are some things when it comes to the United States where, yes, there is a bit of outrage in the UK and sometimes it's hyped up. We can see this in black and white, people being shot on the streets of the United States. I find it unbelievable that people are calling up to defend it. I mean, you can literally see on the video footage of this, it's happened again, a 37-year-old nurse being shot dead. I don't care if he was out there protesting. His previous offences, he sounds like a terrible guy, he had traffic tickets. So do me a favour that this guy was some sort of massive threat to the United States.
James is in Camberwell. James, what made you pick up the phone?
Good question around what do we do? I think we as the UK to combat what is undoubtedly turning into a fascist state. The phrase "first they came for the trade unionists, I did not speak out" really does come to mind there. I mean, if this was it is a rogue state in my view now, and if it was another country in the world that wasn't a superpower, they'd be sending an expeditionary force to introduce democracy, which,
I don't know if we would in the current climate, actually, because, you'd need to wait for America to lead the way, wouldn't you?
Yeah, precisely. I think that the UK, and I think it's actually an opportunity for Starmer to show some actual decisive decision-making, to cut ties as much as you can with the United States and move back to, and I hate to bring up the EU referendum here, but to go back to Europe and to work with our partners, France, Germany, Spain, Italy, and the rest of the European Union build an economic and defensive cooperation like we once had. Because
they still do. Remember, I know you know this, but it's sometimes forgotten in our conversations that they've still got it. And in many ways, Mark Carney showed that you didn't need to be in it to recognise the importance of it, or at least of what it represents. And it's much harder for Starmer. People keep telling me, and they're right. I mean, it is much harder for Starmer because of the isolation that has been inflicted upon the country by people he disagreed with politically, by the economic dependencies that we have on the United States of America, by the military cooperation. You know, what happens to Lakenheath? What happens to the military installations? What happens to Trident? I mean, it's an overused phrase, and I say that as the man who invented it, but it would be like trying to get the eggs out of a baked cake, James.
Yeah, it's not going to happen overnight, but we have for far too long been reliant on the US for, especially from a military perspective. You see Germany especially is rearming, and who would have thought that we'd be happy about Germany rearming, during a time of crisis?
And your original point, actually, about what we do when, we decide that other countries need a little bit of Western democracy, we go and bomb them into Western democracy. But your other point is actually quite haunting, because the short answer is nothing. If America is going fascist, what can we do for them as opposed to for ourselves, to insulate ourselves from it, or to, mitigate it? We can have that conversation a lot, and we can use clever phrases like getting the eggs out of a baked cake, and we can talk about Germany rearming. But in terms of our friends and colleagues and family in America, if the country is going fascist, what can we do to help? Nothing.
I think we need to hope that the midterms,
if they go ahead,
but if they go ahead, but honestly, nothing's off the table, is there? I mean, the third term, jokingly, I won't run for a third term. The fact that he's even saying that is concerning. I think you just got to try and. It's hard to hurt such a superpower economically, but I think we need to start pulling out investments, and it's probably going to hit us as well. But I think
he'll hit back. Is there a historical precedent here? I mean, I keep talking about Poland. Sudetenland happened before Poland, but it wasn't enough to galvanise opposition across the world. Did we start? Forgive my ignorance, and you might not know either, but did we start pulling investments out of Germany in the early 1930s? Did we start divesting of German investments in 1935, 1936? I don't know. We went to the Olympics in 36, so we didn't.
Might be the only one that I can think of.
Say that again.
Apartheid South Africa, where you boycott, and I mean,
but we went to the Olympics in Berlin in 1936, so it's highly unlikely that we'd sort of started boycotting German goods or anything like that, albeit that the trade flows then weren't what they are now. That's a scary thought. Thank you, James. We watch it in America, cousins, or whatever it is. What can we do to help? I mean, you gave us most of the dystopia. We gave the world 1984. I use we very loosely, and a couple of other classics of the genre. But you're looking at A Handmaid's Tale. You're looking at The Hunger Games for younger listeners, and you're looking at America, and you can't really see the difference between the three situations described. And you sort of read them as a Brit thinking, well, we'd help our mates, wouldn't we? What could we do? Answer, nothing. So what does it mean? What does it mean if, and I use that word very, very lightly, loosely, I'm not sure it's necessary, it should probably be now that. But what does it mean if America is fascist?